Hello, my name is James Saperstein, and I'm the CEO of Azurrx. I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about our company. As you can see from the slides presented here, we have our main product is MS-1819, and it's used for the treatment of exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. We currently have two studies that are going that address this very large market of close to $2 billion. We have one study which is monotherapy, which tests our product MS-1819 against pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy, or PERTs, which are made from porcine-derived enzymes, crushed pig pancreases. That study is ongoing in the United States right now, is enrolling as we speak, and we expect to have the first readout of that study first quarter 2021. The second study is what we label the combination study, and that is going on in Europe. We have sites in Hungary and also Turkey. We put out some data back in this past August as well on the first 5 patients. We expect the data readout in 2021 as well, but the second quarter. I'll talk about both these studies in a second in a little bit more detail. If you look at our management team, we have 4 main people in our management team. Martin Krusen, who does our business development from right to left here. Dan Schneiderman, who's a CFO with some great life sciences experience. Dan came on in January. We have Jim Pennington, who's our Chief Medical Officer. Jim and I have known each other for a lot of years. Jim used to be a professor at Harvard Medical School when I knew him back about 30 odd years ago, and then spent some time in the industry in Bayer, most recently at Anthera, where they also were looking at a lipase therapy similar to ours. Myself, 37 years in the business, 17 years in big pharma, Eli Lilly, Hoffman Roche, Bristol Myers Squibb, and then I went over to a small company, Gilead, small at the time, much larger now, and then I ran Serono in the US, the metabolic and endocrinology division, and then started small with my first company named Tubira. Tubira we eventually sold to Allergan for $1.7 billion, and I've been doing small companies ever since. Azurrx is my 4th NASDAQ company, and we are very excited about our product. Before I move further, as I mentioned before, we have MS-1819, which is really for pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy. I mentioned I used to be at Eli Lilly, and I see this market is very similar to a product we launched in my early days at Lilly, which is human insulin, Humulin. Human insulin, or insulin at that time, was mostly derived from beef and pork. It was been in the porcine-derived insulin was on the market for about 85 years. And at Lilly, we launched Humulin, a human insulin derived from E. coli in these vats that they were making it through recombinant DNA technology. And we certainly had our folks who thought it wasn't a good idea, but we always said, well, why wouldn't you want to use humanized product as opposed to animal-derived product? And the market agreed, and human insulin has taken pretty much the whole market in insulin. And we believe this is going to happen with the PERTs as well. We do imagine that once our phase 3 data comes out and our drug gets approved, we'll be able to overtake this market. From a financial perspective, we have a very clean balance sheet for the first time in the history of the company. We've raised as recently as July, $15.2 million, and I had raised a $6.9 million fund raised early in January with some convertible notes. Those convertible notes have now been really taken out by the $15.2 million raise with preferred shares, and we also received well over $2 million from the French government and some tax rebates. So we are well capitalized. We have enough capital to get us through all of phase 2 and into early phase 3. That includes our trials and manufacturing. And as I mentioned before, we have this monotherapy trial, which is being enrolled as we speak in the US. And also we announced in August, we announced our first 3 patients enrolled, but enrollment is just going according to schedule right now. We're very confident we'll have top-line data first quarter of 2021. The combination trial, we've got about 8 patients in right now. I reported our first 5 patients, and I'll talk about that study moving forward. So we're looking at 2 main therapeutic space is cystic fibrosis and chronic pancreatitis. We're going to compete against Creon, is the biggest competitor here. It's about $1.4 billion. It's made by AbbVie. The second leading product is Zenpep. Zenpep was made by Allergan. They divested it during their acquisition by AbbVie, and now it's promoted by Nestle. And that sells about $250 million a year, stand corrected. And it's sold to Nestle for about $1 billion. So we think that our market cap, as soon as we show our phase 2b data, should be increasing to reflect that we are worth that total that I just mentioned, close to $1 billion. So when you look at the comparison between ourselves and the porcine-derived product, you can look down the list. We're more stable in the GI tract. If you look on the right side of the slide, you can see they take anywhere from 25 to 40 capsules a day, which is pretty significant in terms of quality of life and the amount of product they have to take. Ours is 8 to 16 capsules a day. It certainly is a lot. I'm not going to minimize by saying it's not a lot of capsules to take per day, but certainly it's not 25 to 40, and the quality of life should improve for these patients. We're not subject to pig herds being destroyed or being maintained, because importantly we grow ours. It's yeast derived from yeast cells, and we grow it in vats. So we don't have a supply issue. It's a much purer humanized product. It's cleaner, and we don't have any antigenicity issues associated with it as well. So when you look at our studies, our primary endpoints is a coefficient of fat absorption, or CFA. We like to be around 80%. In our chronic pancreatitis, you don't need an 80%. We require much lower. But for cystic fibrosis, the FDA and the European agencies like us to be around 80%. We certainly have other secondary criteria, such as stool consistency, bowel movements, diarrhea, abdominal discomfort. Some of these folks suffer from all of this. Most people, for specifically in cystic fibrosis, they think it's a pulmonary disease, which of course it is. That's the main problem. They don't produce an enzyme that helps them dissolve this mucus that builds up in the lungs. But these folks also suffer from pretty severe GI effects as well. So multifactorial problems with these patients, and we think we're a solution to one of these problems. So we've had 4 studies in phase 2 to date. We've had a proof of concept in chronic pancreatitis that's been completed. I'll show you those results in a second. We've had a monotherapy trial, which was really a proof of concept, but also a bridging study to have some more safety data. And as I said, we have a monotherapy trial right now, which with dose escalating frequency in the protocol. I'll show you that, and also the combination trial. So here's some of the results. In the chronic pancreatitis patients, it was 11 patients around the world. We showed a statistically significant improvement in CFA in chronic pancreatitis. Granted, chronic pancreatitis is a much bigger problem outside the United States, but we still have about 900,000 patients affected here. A lot of these patients get it from pancreatic surgery, or they get it from alcoholism. It's a lot of different factors for chronic pancreatitis. We bridged our 2.2 gram dose, which is the winning dose in a chronic pancreatitis study, to utilize in CF patients. The FDA would not let us go higher than 2.2 grams because we had safety data on 2.2 grams in patients. And we showed our data back in October of 2019, before I joined the company. And you see that we had a CFA of 56% versus 86% with the PERT. So technically, the trial did not achieve the 80%. And some people deemed the trial to be a failure, but I don't really. It was a proof of concept. We showed it worked. What we realized is a couple of things. Number one, besides the product working, we realized the formulation was not where we wanted it to be. The patients were not getting enough drug, or enough drug to get to an effective CFA, and we know we have to increase the dose. So moving forward, we've done our second phase 2b, which is the option 2 trial that's enrolling as we speak. As I said, in the US, soon to enroll in Poland. We have about 30 patients we're looking at, and we expect the CFAs to be over 80%. We're also using an enteric capsule, which we hope will improve our absorption of the drug in the GI tract. And also we have the combination trial there at the bottom. We're looking at about 20 patients. It's dose escalating, 700 milligrams, 1 gram, 2 grams. We don't need to go any higher because we've shown pretty positive CFA data, even in our lowest dose. And what we do is we take patients that are refractory, that are failing on therapy, whose CFA is fallen below 80%. We add a little bit of our drug to those patients, so not a lot. And we've seen some really excellent results. You see the data from the combination. I'm sorry, so this is the option 2 study. This is the protocol, and you see it's a crossover design. So we have, for 3 weeks, patients on PERT, for 3 weeks, patients on our drug, MS-1819. They finish those 3 weeks, we measure CFA, and then we do a cross study. Those patients go on our drug, MS-1819, and our MS-1819 patients go on PERT, and then we have a measurement. We initiated this trial back in July, and we expect top-line data first quarter of 2021. Now, the data on the combination trial, which is below the bottom half of this, if you look at this, V2 is baseline where we were, CFA is below 80%. V4 is a 700 milligram dose. You see CFA is increased to 88.4%, which is exactly where we want it to go, and then so on. It's not really been a dose-dependent trial. Just enough of our drug, even at a low amount, brings the patients above 80%. But what's important here is you see the stool weights have gone down. That's important. That means the patients are absorbing their nutrients far better than they were before. Number of stools per day has gone down, and also the stool weight has gone down. So quality of life is definitely an improvement from some of these patients who are really, really sick. Our clinical pathway, again, we're finishing up phase 2B beginning next year. Phase 3 should be able to get started at the end of the year next year. We expect to have our end of phase 2 meeting with the FDA third quarter, and they'll give us direction moving forward. Our IP, we've got terrific IP covered through 2028. We could use Hatch-Waxman to gain us another 5 years if need be. And in addition, because we're biological, we have 12 years of exclusivity in the US and 10 years of exclusivity in EMEA. We have some ample analyst coverage, as you see here. Financial overview, as I said, we've got good coverage from the analysts, but also we've got enough cash to get us through the end of phase 2B. So just again, as the highlights, we're studying at CF, we're studying in pancreatic, chronic pancreatitis. It's an established market, well over $2 billion as a marketplace. We have a great and senior team. We've been involved in over 25 drug launches, so we've got great experience. We're moving the trials along fairly rapidly, as I said, and we expect to be finished by first quarter 2021 with the monotherapy trial, and second quarter 2021 with the combination trial. That is Azurrx. We're excited to be able to present this to all of you. We're on NASDAQ. AZRX is our symbol, and we'll talk to you soon.